always going to somewhat call for Bailey Zappi.
Late night, WEEI, it's KJ. Thank you so much for hanging out. 617-779-7937. That's Ty Law on Greg Hill's show talking about, look, the fan base is a bit spoiled. We are, but deservedly so. I mean, how many other football organizations can say they've dominated for over the span of 20 years? You'd be a little bit spoiled, too. I totally get it. Did I hear him get chased by a coyote this morning?
Yeah, he got interrupted, and he was saying hey, I had to bring a golf club out, but I guess he was walking.
He got the coyote stare. That's a sign right there. Don't think about climate change. Think about deforesting as the issue, because when coyotes start popping up in your backyard, trust me, you're not going to complain in the summer when it's suddenly
Oh, there was
85.
There was one roaming around where I live in the North Shore, and I was like, I ain't going grocery shopping until that thing is gone.
Oh yeah, there was a fox I used to see all the time when the station I used to work at. I would have to drive through Belmont every day like clockwork. It was like, do you know that I'm coming through here, or do I know that you're coming through? I would see this fox every day. So yeah, I'm more worried about cutting down trees to give them a little space than for coyotes hanging out in my backyard waiting for a deer and then go at it. I don't want that. All right, 617-779-7937. Let's go to Chris in the car. Thanks for calling Late Night on WEEI. You're on the air.
KJ, thanks for taking the call. Love the discussion. I'm on the road, and I just saw a deer myself, so that wildlife in the western suburbs of Boston. Gotta love it.
Yeah.
Let me float something out, and bear with me. I'm going to frame the discussion, and I want to hear your thoughts on it. I mean, I get the zap and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But there are two or three things that come to mind. Number one, you're seeing Mac go from, let's say, the Cadillac or the Ferrari of offensive coordinators to the Chevette or
Pacer, a Pacer, yes, a Pacer. Or a Gremlin. Right. I can agree with that. Yes.
So that's one, and then that you have that change. Then you have number two. That offensive line as of late has become porous, whereas last year it didn't seem as porous. Now I could be wrong. I could be wrong, but the offensive line seems porous. And then you throw on top of that the fact that because you've gone from the sports car to the Gremlin or the whatever you have at this point,
yeah,
that you're now, the change that he's dealing with regard to the guys calling the plays and the actual plays being sent in,
right?
I mean, it has to be night and day, whereas Zappi doesn't know better. So
yeah. And so let me say to your first point, right? A car is still a car.
I'll take the answer off air so you can opine. I don't want to hold you on air, but thank you for taking the call. And we just want to hear what you have to think. Thanks,
all right,
brother.
Chris, thanks for the call. Yeah, be safe out there. Deer, soon as October hits, it's almost like they hear the October roads, here we come. One, while I totally understand going from a great car to a small car, if you know how to drive a car, sometimes you have to make the car work for you. If it's stalling out, if there's no running game, I think what's happening, you say the offensive line is kind of loose. It's you got some bad tires on there, right? And yes, that could tie to maybe Shaq Mason was a lot more important than you think now, right? I've always said that, and this is on the lap of a GM, is if you have a young quarterback and you're not, forget paying for a whole lot of big weapons. Get a solid offensive line. Get veterans, get rookies, get them in there, because it'll do two things. Your running game will continue to be solid, and your quarterback will stand up. You won't need superstar receivers to do that. So that is on the general manager. We know his name. How much would I put on this, the coaching staff versus Mac? I would say 70% of what we're seeing right now is on the coaching staff. General manager, head coach, offensive coordinator, offensive line coach, who's the same guy, right? And Joe Judge, whatever his mix is in there, birds of a feather flocking together, so you're all guilty in the same thing. So 70%, because I think you put together a game plan, and a game plan is pretty much only a C grade until it's executed. So the game plan, I don't have the worst issue with, is some of the tactical measures and how they're implementing it. And that's why and as Chris mentioned, like, look, Bailey Zappi, because that's all he knows, sometimes the person who drives the Ferrari better is the one who knows how to drive the Gremlin. And maybe Mac's situation is he's always been dealing with luxury cars going back to Alabama.